I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Quince. Lately, I've been in a full quality over quantity phase, especially when it comes to my wardrobe. If it's not versatile, well-made, and something that I can wear to school drop-off, I don't want it. And that is exactly why I keep reaching for Quince. Quince makes high-quality wardrobe staples using premium fabrics like 100% European linen, 100% silk, and organic cotton poplin. Their lightweight cotton cashmere sweaters are perfect for this in-between season. Because who knows what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, right? And I'm really loving not only the quality of the material, but also their spring colors and prints. These are versatile, well-made pieces that just make getting dressed simple. And let's talk about fabric for another second, right? Because you can feel the difference of Quince. Their cotton poplin is crisp and it holds its shape. The gauze is soft without being flimsy. And their 100% European linen, well, let's just say it's elevated. Everything Quince makes is built to hold up season after season. The stitching, the fit, the fabrics, these are pieces that you'll reach for over and over. Now, one of my favorite pieces right now is their cotton cashmere sweater. It has become my go-to. It's light enough for layering, but still feels luxe. And it didn't cost me an arm and a leg. And that's the part that gets me. Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories, and it cuts out the middleman. So you're not paying for brand markups or fancy retail stores. You're just paying for quality clothing. And I'm clearly not the only one who loves them. Quince clothing is consistently rated 4.5 to 5 stars by thousands of customers. Real people like you and I wearing these pieces every day and actually loving them. So listen, stop waiting to build the wardrobe you actually want. You don't need a closet full of options. You need pieces that work. And right now, when you visit quince.com/militarymama, you get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to wear it and love it, and you will. Now available in Canada too. Don't go settle for clothes that don't last. Visit quince.com/militarymama. That's QUINCE.com/militarymama. When you visit quince.com/militarymama, you get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/militarymama. All right, now back to the show.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man, an 8-episode series, now streaming on Disney+.
A superhero remake, not exactly what we'd expect from an Oscar-winning director.
Action! Simon Williams, audition for Wonder Man.
I'm gonna need you to sign this, assuming you don't have superpowers.
I'll never work again if anyone found out.
My lips are sealed.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man. All 8 episodes now streaming, only on Disney+.
Welcome back, True Crime Army. I am your host, Margot, and this is Military Murder, a show where I discuss cases involving military members and veterans. And I created this show to remind us all to remain vigilant always. And today, I am telling you a story that will remind you that sometimes the boogeyman lives right next door, but sometimes he sleeps right next to you, and you don't even know it. Yeah, I know, it sounds pretty dramatic, right? But in this case, it's true. Today, I want to tell you about Robin Lawrence, a wife, a mom, a businesswoman who was slain in her home in Springfield, Virginia, way back in 1994. Robin's murder quickly went cold, and it wasn't until recently that her killer's identity was revealed. This is one of those cases where even the people at Parabon Nanolabs, who solve all the cases nowadays, they thought there was a 0% chance of finding the perpetrator using DNA alone. But then a volunteer spent 3 years working on a family tree using genetic genealogy that ultimately led to the perpetrator. Join me today as I tell you how the cold case of Robin Lawrence was miraculously solved and how her killer, once caught, had a lot to say. Now, let's dig in.
Military murder is an independent project and is not endorsed by the Department of Defense or any military component. The views expressed are those of the host. The content of this podcast is not meant to be legal or medical advice. Warning, this episode contains graphic details of murder and is not suitable for young listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Our story today takes us to Springfield, Virginia, circa 1994. It was the week before Thanksgiving, and airline executive Ollie Lawrence Jr. was heading out of town on a business trip. He kissed his wife Robin and his 2-year-old daughter Nicole goodbye as he left. After Ollie was gone, life continued for Robin and Nicole. Robin worked outside of the home, and she celebrated the holiday and worked as usual. While Ollie was away, the couple spoke over the phone several times. But by Sunday, right after Thanksgiving, November 20th,
Ollie began to grow concerned because he hadn't spoken to Robin in several days. And at first he thought, okay, maybe she's busy. But by Sunday morning, Ollie just wanted to double check. In the late morning that Sunday, Ollie reached out to a neighbor and friend named Laura and asked her to go to the house and check on Robin. Laura wasn't just a neighbor. She and Robin met before Robin got married. They met during an adult ballet class, and they were even roommates before Robin married Ollie. So of course, when Ollie called Laura concerned, Laura immediately was like, okay, cool, I'll go check on her. After the call, Laura headed to the Lawrence house and rang the doorbell. But after she rang the doorbell once and no one answered, she rang again and no one answered, and she thought that was really odd. So she walked around the house, and when she reached the back, she saw something alarming. The screen from the sliding back door had been tampered with, and the house was just open. Laura stepped through the door, and as she walked in, she described seeing odd brown streaks on the wall. They weren't large, but they were out of place. Then, as she called for Robin, little footsteps came running into the hallway. It was 2-year-old Nicole. She looked fragile, and her diaper was filthy. Laura told 48 Hours that she remembers little Nicole's big brown eyes. Laura knew something was wrong, so she immediately dialed 911, afraid of what else she would find inside. Authorities arrived at Robin's house just before 12:30 p.m., and as they walked through the house and entered Robin's bedroom, right there, laying on the floor next to her bed in a pool of her own blood, was Robin. She was declared dead on the scene, and 2-year-old Nicole was immediately taken for medical attention. Nicole was dehydrated, and while reports don't mention this, I imagine that little Nicole likely had a diaper rash from having on the same soiled diaper for at least 24 to 48 hours. Thankfully, little Nicole would go on to make a full recovery, but the investigation into her mother's death would take decades to solve. So who was Robin Lawrence? Robin's maiden name was Warr, W-A-R-R. As reported by People magazine, Robin grew up in Syracuse, New York with her parents and 3 siblings. Robin was described as the most outgoing person in her family, and growing up, she loved dancing and painting. So it wasn't surprising when she got a degree in arts. But not just any arts. Robin earned a fine arts degree from Carnegie Mellon University, and she was an artist and a graphic designer. After college, Robin relocated to Washington, D.C., and there she went on to do big things. Due to her artistic abilities, Robin was chosen to create the mold for the first medal for the Martin Luther King Jr. Nonviolent Peace Prize. The first recipient of that prize, by the way, was awarded to Rosa Parks. Beyond being an artist, Robin was a business professional. She was a director of promotion and merchandising at Merchants Tire and Auto Center in Manassas. On top of being a professional, in 1989, Robin married Ollie Lawrence Jr., who was an airline executive. 3 years into their marriage, the couple welcomed a daughter, Nicole. But from her early days, Nicole suffered health issues. Specifically, baby Nicole underwent a liver transplant and required ongoing medication. Which is why when Nicole was discovered alone and fending for herself as her mother lay dead in the home, everyone was shocked. Who would kill a mother and leave a child to wander around the dead mom's body? So let's discuss this investigation. When police arrived at the Lawrence house on Resica Lane, they noted that the intruder likely entered through the screen door that was now removed or pried open. I mean, it really depends on which report you read. And they also noted that the attack on Robin likely began on the bed and then ended on the floor. Police also noted that there was a corded telephone in Robin's bedroom, which had been knocked over and it was on the floor, and the cord had been cut, which was a likely attempt by the perpetrator to keep Robin from calling for help. Sadly, though, Robin would not have had a chance to call 911 because the perpetrator made sure she was dead before leaving. Robin's autopsy revealed that she was stabbed 49 times. Police also found dried blood on the walls, and they found a small hand towel in the bathroom with a smidge of blood on it. A detective who observed the crime scene was drawn to that hand towel, and they took it as evidence. Now, DNA was taken in 1994 from that hand towel, and I'm going to get back to that. Authorities also noted as they were looking at the crime scene that there were tissues strewn around the house and that there were baby bottles near Robin's body. And those 2 clues are believed to have to do with baby Nicole. You see, it's believed that 2-year-old Nicole may have grabbed tissues to try to help clean up the blood near her mom while she was all by herself. And the baby bottles? Well, what do kids do when they want a bottle refill? They often bring the empty bottle to an adult. And throughout those 2 days that Nicole was alone, she was likely hungry and attempting to get her mom to give her food. which makes this case even sadder to think about. When authorities looked for signs in the home of robbery or sexual assault, they found none, which really baffled them. If this crime wasn't motivated by a robbery or a sexual assault, who exactly wanted Robin dead? They canvassed the area and asked neighbors if they saw anyone out of place in the days prior to Robin's discovery, and no one gave anything significant or they didn't see anything significant. Authorities tried to pinpoint the last time anyone ever spoke to Robin, and they determined the attack likely occurred on Friday night, because at around 6 p.m., that was the last time that anyone spoke to Robin. So, since no one saw or heard anything out of the ordinary, authorities started asking questions to those closest to the victim, and they were particularly interested in Ali. They started thinking, well, it was convenient that Ali was away that weekend. Could he have had something to do with Robin's murder? Ali was cooperative during questioning, and he even came forward about an ongoing affair with a woman at work, but he denied any involvement in his wife's murder. Authorities then reached out to Ali's affair partner, and she was cooperative as well, even going as far as providing a DNA sample without issue. In my research, I found that the Washington Post reported that in 1996, after thorough analysis of both Ali and his affair partner, they were ruled out as suspects. Investigators then turned to the DNA found on the washcloth in the bathroom. A DNA profile was put into the system but revealed no matches at the time. Now, I do have to explain something. The national DNA database that we now have did not exist in 1994 the way it exists now. I know that CODIS and NDIS can be confusing, so I went to the FBI website to help me explain it, right? CODIS is the generic term used to describe the FBI's program of support for criminal justice DNA databases, as well as the software used to run these databases. NDIS is the National DNA Index System, and it's considered a part of CODIS, the national level, which contains the DNA profiles contributed by federal, state, and local participating forensics labs. So NDIS is the national portion of CODIS, right? The FBI describes that the CODIS pilot program began in 1990, with the federal authority formalized by the DNA Identification Act of 1994. Yet NDIS wasn't implemented until October 1998. So before 1998, it was all just kind of like a local system. After 1998, it became a national system. But on top of all of this, it's important to recognize that CODIS is only helpful if someone's DNA is already in the system. If a person has no qualifying criminal history, or if their DNA was never collected under the laws of the time, then there won't be a hit in CODIS. Now, I know we are all used to cold cases being solved by genetic genealogy, but that is a more recent science which was not used at the time that Robin's murder occurred. So all that to say that after a very intense investigation, sadly, Robin Lawrence's case went cold.
I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Gusto. You guys know that I wear a lot of hats, right? I'm running Mama Margot Productions. I'm managing sponsors, handling contracts, tracking expenses, paying editors, researchers, and writers. And let me tell you, the admin side of running a business, it can eat your entire day if you let it. There have absolutely been moments when I'm staring at a tax form and I'm like, wait, there has got to be an easier way to do this. And that's where Gusto comes in. Gusto is an online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all-in-one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use so that you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. If you're growing a business, Gusto handles automatic payroll tax filing, simple direct deposits, health benefits, workers' comp, and even 401k options. It basically gives you the infrastructure of a big business without the chaos. And if you've ever dealt with a complicated HR situation and thought, I'm way out of my league, well, Gusto takes the guesswork out. They give you direct access to a certified HR expert, and that's huge. So listen, if you're serious about building something sustainable, not just a side hustle, but a real business, having your payroll and HR dialed in is part of leveling up. And I've teamed up with Gusto to get you a great deal. You can try Gusto today at gusto.com/MMP, and there you can get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll by visiting gusto.com/MMP, which is short for Mama Margot Productions. All right, one more time. check out gusto.com/MMP for 3 months of free payroll. All right, guys, now let's get back to the show.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
Two decades after Robin's murder in the mid-2010s, a cold case team led by detectives John Long and Melissa Wallace pulled up Robin's case file. Seeing as there was unknown DNA in the file that still did not reveal a CODIS hit, they turned to genetic genealogy. There it is. According to Forensic Magazine, detectives on Robin's case submitted the unknown DNA from the hand towel to Parabon Nanolabs in 2019. Parabon Nanolabs ran the DNA, and as reported on 48 Hours, when they run the DNA, it is input into two databases, GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. Those two databases then give Parabon Nanolabs a list of people who are in those systems that share DNA with the unknown DNA. In essence, GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA build a family tree that authorities then sift through until they find their person. But the thing about this is that this case was different. Parabon revealed that the unknown DNA matches in Robin's case, they were really distant, meaning that the relatives in common went really far back in time, which meant that there were lots of descendants. And the descendants in this case were from outside the United States, mostly in Europe. Okay, so what exactly was Parabon saying when they were like, hey, there's so many distant cousins or distant relatives? Like, what were they saying? Well, in essence, what they meant is, we got nothing for you. Parabon Nanolabs, no kidding, gave detectives a solvability rate of 0. 0. Let me repeat that again. 0. They followed that up with saying, you don't have the time nor the money to move the needle in this case with these results. As you can imagine, the detectives in this case felt deflated. But then, an angel came to the rescue, and her name is Liz. Now listen, True Crime Army, there was a recent review by someone named Lady Lapka, and she left me a 1-star review recently saying that I push God too much on my podcast. And yeah, I do that, don't I? And guess what? Here I go again, because I do believe that Liz was an angel. And I do believe what happened next was nothing short of miraculous. So who was Liz? Liz is an amateur genealogist and a volunteer with the police department. She heard about Robin's case and Parabon's response, and she took the case on her spare time for free. Free. Detectives realized they had nothing to lose. I mean, when Parabon Nanolabs is telling you we got nothing, 0, zilch, why not just throw this Hail Mary, right? Seeing that Liz wanted to help, detectives handed Liz everything that Parabon discovered about the unknown DNA's ancestry. Liz revealed in her interview with 48 Hours that when she got the packet, she had a list of 1,500 distant cousins of the unknown DNA. And we're talking about 4th, 5th, and 6th level cousins who lived back in the 1800s. But Liz got to work. And while Liz was weeding her way through the perpetrator's cousins who lived in the 1800s in Italy and Scandinavia, the detectives did not sit around idle. Recognizing that Parabon Nanolabs does more than genetic genealogy, the detectives reached back out and asked if Parabon would develop an image of what the perpetrator looked like. This is called a genotyping sketch, and that is a science that predicts what a person looks like just by using their DNA. Now, I do want to point out that the sketches do not predict age, so the sketches are typically developed for someone who looks roughly 25 years old. Parabon Nanolabs got the genotyping sketch done with the help of a forensic artist, and the result was an image of a young white male, light brown hair, square jaw, and dark blue eyes. With the sketch in hand, detectives were now hopeful that the image would lead them somewhere. Maybe somebody would recognize this as a neighbor, the mailman, someone's son. The detectives then went back to the drawing board. They asked Ali, Robin's close friends and family, neighbors, if they recognized the person in the sketch. But everyone drew a blank. And now detectives felt deflated all over again. They were trying everything, absolutely everything to solve Robin's murder, to bring closure to her now adult daughter. but they kept hitting wall after wall. But then one day, Liz called. As you might recall, Liz, our volunteer, started with a list of 1,500 distant cousins of the perpetrator, all from outside the United States. But after working for 3 years during her spare time, Liz found relatives of the unknown DNA living in Canada. Now, this was especially great for Liz because she found 2 of the perpetrator's cousins who were unrelated to each other. She described to 48 Hours that in developing these 2 separate family trees, all she had to do now was connect the 2 trees. Because the ultimate question was, where do these 2 trees come together? And when Liz found the link, it was a giant aha moment. After sifting through 1,500 people's family trees in her spare time for 3.5 years, Liz gave the detectives a name that she felt was highly reliable. And that name was Stephan Smerk. Stephan Smerk was born in 1973, and at the time the detectives were looking into him, he was a 51-year-old computer programmer living in Niskayuna, New York. He was married to a defense attorney, and he had 2 kids in high school. Man had no criminal history, not even a speeding ticket to his name. I mean, could this be their guy? They started thinking, what if their amateur genealogist who was working in her spare time was wrong? Well, that's when they decided to pull the genotyping sketch that Parabon had created for them, and they put it right next to a high school yearbook picture of the man they now knew as Stephan Smerk. As they looked at the 2 pictures, they squinted, they rubbed their eyes, and they thought, wow, these actually look very similar. Now, armed with this information, they decided they needed to pay Stephan a visit. In September of 2023, the detectives took a trip to Niskayuna, New York. They canvassed Smerk's house, and when he appeared to be alone, they knocked. The detectives informed Smerk that they were detectives from Fairfax County, Virginia, and they were there because they were looking into a cold case from the 90s. They asked if he would be willing to answer some questions. And without skipping a beat, changing expressions on his face, or asking any further questions, Smerk allowed the 2 detectives to come into his home. Once inside, the detectives gave Smerk their business cards, and they gave him the entire spiel. Hey, we just need a voluntary sample of your DNA. You know, we're kind of looking into this cold case. Maybe it's a family member, yada, yada, yada. And detectives, they said that they're used to people hemming and hawing about not wanting to give DNA, asking questions about like which of my family members could have done this. But Smerk, he was different. He didn't ask a single question. He simply provided his DNA, and the detectives were in and out of his house in 5 minutes, which really shocked them. But shocking doesn't even begin to explain what happens next. Within hours of detectives leaving Smerk's house with his DNA in hand, Smerk called them. He simply said, quote, "I'm at the police department to turn myself in," end quote. When pressed for more information, like, what are you talking about? Smerk clarified that he was turning himself in for the cold case murder. Y'all, now let me stop right here. This case really brought me to tears for various reasons. First, detectives were given a 0% probability chance of solving this case using genetic genealogy. Second, a volunteer agreed to take the case, and after 3 years of working in her spare time, the volunteer developed 1 suspect. And third, detectives showed up to the suspect's house, spoke to him for 5 minutes, he voluntarily provided DNA, and hours later, he's admitting he did it? I mean, some of you might call it luck, but I believe this has everything to do with the detectives' hard work and miraculous intervention. So listen, I'm getting carried away with myself because as we know, cases require due process, and it ain't over till it's over. And all we have here is a guy trying to turn himself in, but guess what? The Niskayuna Police Department was apparently closed or something. So when Smerk tried to turn himself in at the police department, he couldn't even get inside. The detective on the phone with Smerk was desperate. She didn't want Smerk to change his mind, so thinking on her feet, she said, "Hey, listen, hang up with me and call 911 and report that you're there to turn yourself in." And that's exactly what he did. Eventually, the Niskayuna Police Department opened up the station, and Smerk was taken to one of the interview rooms where his interview was recorded. And the detectives were eager, and they rushed back to question him. Now, a million things were going through the detectives' minds. They didn't want to screw this up. They didn't want to plant seeds in his mind. They wanted to hear exactly what Smerk had to say and allow him to describe in as much detail what happened back in 1994, because that way, Smerk could not later say this was some sort of false confession or whatever. And let me tell you, they did not have to worry because Stephan Smerk was eager to get this off his chest. Sitting in that interview room, Smerk told detectives it was him. He was the murderer who killed Robin Lawrence back in 1994. At the time, he said he was an Army soldier stationed at what is now known as Joint Base Myer Henderson in Arlington, Virginia. Smerk described that he had always had the urge to kill, and that night, he was out with a friend drinking and taking ephedra, and that was when he decided to just go for it, hunt for a victim, and just kill a stranger. After he left his friend, he went on the hunt alone. He was familiar with Robin's neighborhood because he had friends who lived nearby, so he went there. He said he had never seen Robin before and had no idea what he was going to find inside. He actually said, "I could have easily walked into a house with a ton of people." That's how random his house choice was. But once he picked Robin's house, he put on a ski mask and gloves and walked to the back of the house. He then used a stick to jimmy the sliding door open. Once inside, Smerk went to the bedroom where Robin was sleeping or laying in bed. He knew there was a little girl in the house and described she was sleeping in another bedroom, but that didn't stop him. Upon entering Robin's room, she realized there was an intruder in her room, and Robin begged Smerk not to hurt her. While describing the attack to detectives, Smerk recalled that Robin was a fighter, and she did not go down without a fight. She clawed at his face with all her might, which drew blood, and ultimately, it was Robin's fierce determination that led to his downfall. Because in the fighting and the scratching, she cut his face near his nose, and eventually he went to the bathroom and cleaned the scratch, leaving behind DNA on that hand towel. Now, Smerk commented to the detectives that when she clawed at him, he was more concerned that she might have his DNA under her fingernails, and that's how he would ultimately be caught. He described brutally attacking Robin, then leaving, driving back to the base, but tossing the knife and clothes in a body of water before actually getting to base. Smerk also confessed that he had been possessed with the urge and need to kill for years. But after killing Robin, he contained himself. He chillingly said that if it wasn't for his wife and kids, he'd likely be a serial killer. Then he nonchalantly added, quote, "I'm a serial killer who only killed once," end quote. After his confession, the detectives asked Smerk if he had anything to say to the family, to Robin's family. And this is what he had to say about that.
Would you like to write something to them that we can provide to them?
how do I say this? I know you're recording.
Yeah, you can say it however you want.
I don't feel anything for the family.
Now, I know that I've discussed other sociopaths before, but hearing this man not have an ounce of remorse for the victim's family is heartbreaking. After Smerk's confession, he was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. After he was extradited from New York to Virginia, he was held without bond. The jury indictment followed in April of 2024, but thankfully, it was evident from the beginning of all of this that Stephan Smerk was not going to be fighting any of it. And with that, on October 4th, 2024, Smerk pled guilty to murder. During his sentencing hearing on March 7th, 2025, Smerk's defense team argued that there were several mitigating factors that the judge should consider. Specifically, they argued that Smerk was a troubled soldier suffering from a psychological episode due to his mental health and substance abuse. After the killing, the defense argued that Smerk stabilized his life and has since accepted responsibility. And it was during sentencing that Smerk spoke to Robin's family, saying, quote, "No family should have to wait 30 years for justice for a loved one. I am extremely sorry for the pain and suffering I have caused. All these years, I have been a coward living with guilt, shame, and self-hatred. It is my sincere hope that my arrest and subsequent incarceration brings some closure," end quote. But the judge was like, nah, man. He called Robin's murder among the worst in county history and then sentenced Smerk to 70 years in prison. The judge further imposed a $100,000 fine. In sentencing Smerk, Judge Oblin said, quote, "After destroying the Lawrence family, he went on to build his own family. It is beyond callous to know that Mr. Smerk left a 2-year-old child alone with her freshly dead, bleeding mother. She never even knew the basics of her mother, such as what made her laugh." Now, real briefly, I do want to talk about parole in Virginia. 4 Washington NBC reported that Smerk will be eligible for parole, despite the fact that Virginia abolished parole decades ago. And this is because, get this, parole in Virginia was abolished 41 days after Robin Lawrence's murder, meaning that Smerk's crime was committed during a time when parole was available, and therefore parole still applies to him. Nonetheless, the judge did take that into account and imposed a restriction on Smerk's freedom should he ever be paroled. And that restriction is that he will have to wear a GPS monitor if ever released. So what about Smerk's family? Remember, I told you earlier that his wife was a defense attorney and he had 2 kiddos in high school. As you can imagine, they were devastated at the news that their dad was a murderer. As reported by the Washington Post, Smerk's wife divorced him after his confession, and Smerk's kids, who were 17 and 20 at the time of sentencing, well, they distanced themselves from their dad. As for Robin's family, they were grateful for the verdict, but they were tearful because they truly missed Robin, even decades later. When the news first broke that an arrest had been made in Robin's case, Ollie Lawrence spoke out and said that he was flabbergasted to learn how they found the guy. He did note that learning of the break in the case did bring back a lot of sadness for what happened to Robin. At the time of the arrest, Ollie was by then retired and he was living in France. He remarried 12 years before Smerk's arrest. And Nicole, Robin's daughter, she is no longer that 2-year-old little girl. She's a grown woman now, never having really known her mom. But she stood strong next to her cousin as her cousin spoke to the media after it was all said and done. Nicole is now married. And what about Liz, the volunteer who spent 3 years sifting through Smerk's family tree? She's not mentioned in any of the articles that I read. She did speak during the 48 Hours special, but other than that, she's not listed anywhere. And maybe that's the way she wanted it to be. She helps because it's the right thing to do, not because she needs clout. And for that, I just want to say, thank you, Liz. True Crime Army, thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm not going to lie, this is one of the most fascinating solved cold cases I've covered because even though it took decades, when everything finally aligned, it just seemed to fall into place. All right, everyone, be sure to tune in next week where I will bring you a fresh new case. My sources for today's story include a 48 Hours episode, a People Magazine Investigates episode, as well as updates posted to the Fairfax County Police Department news website, a police department press conference, and reporting in Washington Post, Paramount Press Express, WJLA, ABC 7 News, WUSA 9, NBC4 Washington, and CNN. Military Murder is a Mama Margot production. The music was created by Ty-Ops. Until next time, remember, you never really know what someone is capable of, so remain vigilant always. You have a fabulous week, and I'll keep digging to bring you another military murder story next time.
Mama's working on her podcast. I don't want to.